Well, here it is,
Welcome
27th of May, 2022.
to the Backpack Show. You can't do a weather report because we're in different places.
Mm,
So,
looks kind of gray out the window.
it's pretty nice in Nashville. There, you're all caught up.
Right, there we go. So what's
gonna
going
talk
on in the
about
Backpack Show today? I figure we haven't had any animals
leadership.
lately.
I'm ridiculously excited about this. So, we're going to speak with Jude Jennison, founder of Leaders by Nature, a leadership and team development company. She works with a herd of horses to help executives and teams develop leadership skills.
I've heard of horses. How do you know how many horses is a herd? I guess they're going to have to ask that question because...
I've never heard.
Oh.
Hi, everyone. Tim Kitzrow from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gorgone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show.
I'm excited about this.
Is it like Bible stuff? Like, wherever two or more are gathered in his name, there's a herd.
No, it's more like nonverbal communication is the key to team and project success and to leadership.
Oh, that's what Jude does. That's not what horses do. They're not trying to be leadership teachers in the
How do you think they pick a leader? They don't vote on it. They can't talk about it. We need to ask Jude.
I see my parents, my biological father and his wife, Diane.
Your mother.
Oh, right. My mom.
Hi, Janice. Janice made it.
I'm
Chloe from Janice Scotland. Jude is in the United Kingdom, Chloe.
Right around the corner.
Far away.
Not super far from Birmingham, which means not super far from Doncaster, if we keep going. And old Donnie. All right, we have to read some ad reads.
Okay.
So guess what? Want a podcast? You can get one. Castos.com. Pretty good podcasting platform. Very simple.
Makes it really easy.
We've had it for a while now. I don't have anything bad to say about it. I think Kate said she was going to send us some coins, so let's do pre-search. Pre-search is a search engine, not like the Google. It's completely different than the Google.
It works really well. And Pre-search started their own search engine because they discovered that Google was purposely tanking some small business sites in favor of their own offering. So that was the impetus for creating Pre-search, and that's why I support Pre-search.
Hey, do you want to make a web show just as easy as this? Go to StreamYard, cbrogan.me/StreamYard. Super easy.
Get your own horse and CEO whisperer.
Right. You can whisper horses and whisper CEOs. CEO. Want a .online domain? You can. It's only $1. All you have to do is go to cbrogan.me/online, put in the word Chris any way you want. And
all caps. It has to be all caps. Oh. I don't know why it has to be all caps.
That's true. My dad's just keeping from wearing a Metallica shirt.
Yeah. That's what he thinks that is.
Metallica.
Unless he thinks I am.
Oh, maybe you are.
Wearing a Metallica shirt, but I'm not. Nope. It doesn't say anything. Neither of us.
Metal words. All right.
Maybe Jude is.
Jude might be wearing a Metallica shirt. You're probably a big metal fan, right, Jude?
Not especially a metal fan, no.
No, the horses don't like that.
Do you know what? I've never played metal to them, but I guess they wouldn't enjoy it.
I mean, you never know till you try, but I would be nervous.
I'm going to recommend a few bands after. There's a great Mongolian band called The Who, and they're Mongolian, so they have a strong horse culture. So it might be might connect. How did this all get about? Right? No one says, I think I'm going to become a leadership coach with horses. How did that, what were you thinking?
Well, I started off with what my mother calls a proper career. So I started off working for IBM. And so that's my proper career. And I did a whole range of leadership roles in IBM for 17 years. And then 11 years ago, I set up a leadership and coaching business. And at the time I was terrified of horses. And I thought, well, I don't want to be frightened of anything in life, so I'll just overcome my fear of horses. And in 5 minutes, I overcame my fear. And in 2 hours, I learned so much about my leadership. And particularly, how do I stay in relationship with someone or something that I find intimidating, whether it's a person or a horse? And I that was such profound learning to get in a couple of hours that I went back and trained in this work with no intention of doing it. Because I didn't know anything about horses. And for some reason, I stuck a page on my website and clients came. So I did what any sane person does and bought a horse. and the rest is history. And I've been now been doing it for 11 years. So I fell into it by chance, really.
I have to go back, because what do you mean in 5 minutes you figured it out? Because that's a pretty short amount of time from horses to you're not the boss of me. Like, what did you get in a little fisticuffs? Like, how do you do that? What happened in the 5 minutes?
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple of things. Firstly, in the presence of horses, once we get over our initial, oh my God, they're big. Once you get over that, then what actually happens in the scientific research shows that in their presence, we slow down our breathing and we slow down our heart rates. So naturally, as we do that, the fear starts to take less of a hold on us. So that naturally happens in the presence of horses anyway. And then secondly, what I realized was that I didn't need to be frightened of them if I could respect them and respect me. Because actually, they don't want to push me around any more than anybody at work ever wants to push anybody around. Even that aggressive person in the office, and we can all think of one, that person doesn't mean to be a bully. That actually, if somebody's being aggressive, they're scared too. And so if we can actually shift our frame of reference to how do I support you in your fear and how do I get support for me in my fear, then suddenly we become equals. And they're no longer intimidating. And so as a result of that, I just went, oh, okay, I just need to respect you and respect me and make sure that I'm really clear about what I want and need from you. And what I mostly wanted and needed was not to be pushed around or trampled by a 600-kilogram horse. And once I was clear about that, they respected it and stayed at arm's length. And once I realized I could do that, I was like, oh, all I need to do is ask them really clearly and be really clear about my boundaries, and they'll respect it. Which, of course, if we're the same with people, if we're clear about what our boundaries are, people generally will respect them. It's usually we're not clear enough.
How much of communication is nonverbal versus verbal?
There's all sorts of research. I mean, there's one piece of research that says it's 93%. I'm not sure it is that much. So I think the honest answer is we don't know, but it's the bulk of what we do. So what we think, what we're feeling, our energy, our intentions, all of the stuff we're rumbling internally creates a connection or a disconnection. And once you've created a connection, then all you have to do is be clear about what you want in order for people to engage and either choose to come with you or not. And so I think it is the majority. And one of the things I find with the horses is that people don't need to speak to them at all for the horse to come with them. They need to build a relationship and they need to be clear about what they're asking the horse to do. And that can just be by simply walking in a way that has the horse want to be with them because the horse feels safe around them. And if you think about, we don't very often talk about safety in the workplace, but actually what we want as human beings is we want to feel safe in each other's company. And if we feel safe, we'll connect and we'll engage. And if we don't feel safe, we'll disconnect and disengage. And that's really what we're all doing as human beings or as horses all of the time.
Are people excited about this, or are they like, oh, come on, we're going to some horse ranch to pet horses, give me a break? Like, how is it a mix? How do teams respond to this? I would love it, by the way.
Well, and here's the thing, it's whatever people's default pattern is with uncertainty and change is exactly what shows up around the horses. So the minute a team walk through my gate, the early adopters and the people that are like, yeah, I'll have a go at anything, those are the people who walk through the gate going, I'm so excited, I can't wait to do this is going to be amazing, even though they don't know whether it's amazing or not. And that's about 10% of people. And then at the other end of the spectrum is about 10% of people who walk through the gate and they're either really vocal about it or they're very quiet about it, and they may admit to it later. But they're the ones who are skeptical about change, who dismiss everything as a starting point and as a default pattern, and will sit there and think this is completely pointless. I mean, the worst example I had of this was a guy who walked through the gate, and I was standing by my office door, and I went to stretch to shake his hand, like as you would. And he walked past me, didn't shake my hand, brushed past me so hard I nearly fell over. And he walked into my office and said to the rest of his team, "This is a complete waste of time. I don't want to be here. We should be running the company. Don't see the point of this." And I just thought, he's out of his comfort zone and he's scared. And within about half an hour, he was leading a horse with a big smile on his face. And by about 11 o'clock in the morning, he was like, "Oh my God, this is brilliant." And it's just, you know, he is the skeptic versus the early adopters who bounce through excited. And that's the kind of 10% at the extremes. And in the middle is everybody else who they want to engage, they want to embrace change, but actually they're uncomfortable. And so they connect and disconnect and they have a go and then they disappear. And that's where the majority of people sit in relationship to change. And so, it, you know, as soon as people walk through the gate, I can see who embraces change and who's the resistor in the office.
Dude, can we go back to that guy?
Oh, your shirt, it looks like the Time Master, Chris.
It's Time Master. Is that a Doctor Who fella?
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't remember the shirt.
All right, I didn't watch a whole lot of Doctor Who. I watched all the sci-fi, just not. I was a Tom Baker, and then it was over for me. All right, Jude, let's go back to that guy, the skeptic guy, because I'm pretty sure that's me. I'm pretty sure if I turn the corner and there's a gate, and especially if no one had told me, like, how a surprise, I turn the corner and there's a crap ton of horses in a yard, I'd be like, "Oh, geez, Louise." I wouldn't knock you over because I'm personable, but I wouldn't be happy to be there. You said about a half an hour and this man turned it over. Again, how? Like, that's a pretty fast turn. So how did like, do you lock him in a closet with a horse? Like, what happens?
No, what I did was I took all the pressure off him, because what I realized was that that's a fear response. That resistance is, I don't want a part of this. I don't want to engage. All of that is basically saying, I'm in overwhelm. I'm so far out of my comfort zone. And what we tend to do when we're out of our comfort zone is we're either honest about being scared, or we say, I don't see the point of this. And when somebody says, I don't see the point of this, what they really mean is, I'm scared of getting it wrong, or I'm scared it might be rubbish, or just I'm scared. And so what I did was recognize, if he's scared and in overwhelm, then there's no point in me rushing him. So to take all the pressure off him, ignore him, and engage with everybody else, and trust that he will engage when he's ready. And this is what's really interesting. You know, if you think in the workplace, if somebody doesn't engage, what we do is we poke at them. We go, engage, damn it, engage. You're like, we need you on the bus. And actually what we need to do is just say, let them go, focus on the ones who are willing, and they'll bring that person in eventually. And so what happened was, the first exercise of the day was to lead a horse around the arena, one at a time. And they were a team of 8 people. So 7 people, one at a time, led a horse around the arena, did a debrief, got some learning. And he sat back and watched all of that. And I came to him and as the last person, and I said, do you want to lead a horse? It's okay if you don't. And he said, yeah, I'll give it a go. And interestingly, he walked up to my mare and he turned to her and he said, right, move, we're going. Now, normally, so he'd been as effectively as rude to her as he was to me. And normally, if you did that to my mare, she'd headbutt you, because she just won't be told what to do. But she realized he was scared as well. And so what she did was she made herself really small and she walked beside him. And as he grew in confidence, she grew bigger and bigger. And she's a big mare. She's a big, huge horse. And she grew bigger and bigger as he grew taller and started to own his space. And by the time he'd done one lap around the arena, he came back with this massive smile on his face, because the thing he was most scared of was getting it wrong, being shown up, being, looking an idiot, being shown, or proved that he can't lead. He didn't want to be the only one in the team that was shown up by a horse, which you kind of understand that.
So your dad is into this, Chris. 14 seasons of watching Heartland shows me that you are on the right track. Horses, for the most part, can help most of us. Like life, there are exceptions, however. Well, I mean, if you're a big jerk or something, horses are going to sense that, right? But everybody senses that. So a lot of what you're saying is that whether you realize it or not, you bring a certain energy to every meeting and every interaction with people. It's not unlike, Chris, what you say about how having in mind before a meeting what kind of experience you want to create, except that you're thinking consciously about it. I think most people just like blunder in there and bring all their negative or positive energy with them. So what can you do about that if you don't realize?
That's exactly it though, Kerry, because most people are completely unconscious of the energy that they bring into a meeting. And so the work that I'm doing with the horses is saying to people, well, what's the impact that you're having? And is it what you want to have? And if it is, then great. And if it's not what you want to have, then try something else.
So in that case, then, so Chris made me beg. So in that case, then, if you want to be aware of the energy you're bringing into meetings and you're not, how can you make that change? How can you make it so that you're more conscious? Put Jude Jennison out so that you're more conscious going into meetings and other interactions of your own kind of bias in favor or bias against. Ooh, can you hear Jude?
I think I lost you there briefly. So can you ask
I was just saying, so how can, if you're unaware of your energy going into meetings and stuff like that, or if you were until now unaware of the significance of it, how can you make yourself pay attention to your unconscious biases in favor or against, what's happening, who you're going to meet with, maybe the ideas you've been pre-primed one way or the other for?
I think it's by paying attention, and that's not something that we do very well as human beings. We just don't observe, and especially, in today's working environments where we're working at 300 miles an hour, we're not paying attention in that moment. So when we're just really focused on where we're going, we miss all of the subtle signs around us. So as you say, we're feeding off each other's energy all the time. You only need to walk into a dodgy part of a town to suddenly think, oh, this doesn't feel right. I need to get out of here. So this is an innate skill that we all have, but we've ignored it in favor of knowledge and information and searching online. And so what we're doing is we're getting people to still use their brilliant brains, but tap into our heart and our gut and our energy and start bringing in some of those other senses and using those as a source of information. But it's paying attention.
Dude, in that light, one of the things I was thinking about was there's that grumpy guy. He gets turned around. He's like, okay, got it. And then he goes back to the office and that's it. He throws that experience away. He goes, well, that was fun. I walked a horse around. And that's it. And he just forgets it. How do we stay connected to what we're supposed to have learned from walking the horse around? When you do these kinds of trainings, what's the little sachet that they take away or whatever? What makes them think, I'm going to treat people more like horses?
Well, I think firstly it's by raising their conscious awareness of, oh, this is the impact I'm having. So when a horse comes up and headbutts the aggressive person, that's feedback in a brutal and very, very visual way that they've never had before. And so they never forget that. The second thing is that this work is very embodied. And by that, I mean, you remember it in your body. So you remember, what did it feel like in my body when the horse came with me? And how uncomfortable was I in my body when the horse was refusing to engage? And so I always say it's a little bit like learning to ride a bike. When you've got your balance on a bike and when you're wobbling. And in the same with our leadership, we know when we're in flow and we also know when it's just a bit awkward and clunky. And so part of what we're doing all day is raising awareness for people of what does it feel like when it's awkward and clunky in your body and therefore your leadership. And how do you then just continually learn how to try something else and try something else until you find that ease and that flow and keep coming back to ease and flow. And you can't unlearn that once you've learned that, in the same way as you can't unlearn riding a bike.
Leslie had a question. When you have staff members who consistently bring negative energy with them about everything, how do you make them understand their impact that they clearly cannot see? So some, like if they're bringing people down, I guess, bringing the team down.
Yeah, I mean, great question. My obvious,
you can't headbutt people at work, says Janice.
Well, yeah, and you know, and one of the reasons why I work with horses is for that, because you can be so much more brutal as a horse with your feedback than you can. And I think this is the problem at work, is that we craft it in a try and be skillful about it, and we soften it. And the challenge that you have is, let's say the aggressive person in the office. Firstly, that person doesn't think they're aggressive. Secondly, that person doesn't know how else to behave and is frightened of trying something new in case it doesn't work. And thirdly, when you're giving them feedback, you're giving them feedback from your own perspective of, I want you to change. I want you to be less aggressive. So what we have to do is we actually have to change our own behavior, because as soon as I change my behavior, I influence somebody else's behavior in relationship with me in a different way. So I think the only way to change somebody else is to change your own behavior.
You have mentioned in the past about how important it is to be clear about what you want when you're dealing with horses. I mean, it's the same with teams, right? So if the mission's not clear and people are just executing all over the place, how can a leader distill a pretty complex message or goal, like for a big enterprise, down to something as simple as, right, let's go, walking now?
Yeah, I mean, I refer to this as leading from the front, the middle, and the back. And leading from the front is about being really clear about, this is the vision. In the middle, you then have to say, well, what does that mean for me? And what does that mean for everybody in my team? And are we all aligned? And when we add up the sum of those parts, does it actually meet what the goal that, or the objective that has been set? And so I think that is the role of a team, is, you know, it's really clear the strategy is X, or the goal is to meet a particular financial target, but we all have to play a part in that. And we all have to trust in each other's ability to play a part in that. So for example, if we were going to move a table from A to B, we would all take a table leg or a side of a table, and we'd find our balance with it, and we'd move the table. And we might use words to do that, or we might not, but we'd all commit to moving that table. And so if I suddenly dropped my leg, you would wobble all over the place. Well, firstly, that would be disrespectful of me to do that, because I'm dumping all the workload on you. And hopefully in a team, you would trust me that I'm not going to drop my table leg. I'm going to do my part. And I think this is what we need to be able to do as a team, is we do our own role, and we support each other with their role, and we continually communicate and say, what do you need from me? And I think it's shifting from, normally in teams, we say, this is what I want from you. And what we need to start getting better at is, what do you want from me? Because if I can keep asking that question, I can keep changing my behavior in service of the whole, instead of just doing what I think I need to do.
In a lot of ways, Jude, when I'm listening to you, I'm hearing the same kind of advice that could be applied when you have somebody who's autistic in your family. And I'm hearing, neuroatypical interactions and whatnot. And it also strikes me that the kind of person who really connects deeply with horses, makes it part of their business, may or may not be a lot more sensitive to neurodiversity, let's say. Is there any connection to that in your leadership? This is not raw leadership. There's a lot of emotion and psychology inside of you as well. And I want to put that out there.
Yeah, no, well, thank you. Yes, I have huge amount of sensitivity, and working with the horses just continually makes you dig deeper with that, because every day I'm getting headbutted by a horse, and every day I'm getting feedback that says, no, not that. And so I'm continually refining, how do I show up as a leader? I don't have experience with neurodiversity, so it isn't my area of expertise. My expertise is in leadership and coaching. However, we all work with neurodiversity, because we're all neurodiverse in our own way. And You know, and there's varying degrees of that. So
right.
I think having that sensitivity creates a level of acceptance and seeking to understand that actually we're all different. You know, whether it's neurodiversity or race or gender or sexuality or whatever, or even is it just that, you know, I'm a white female that thinks like this or has a bias towards X. So I think that's what makes us fascinating as human beings, is that the fact that we are so diverse. And if we can go to that place, we can be more curious about each other, and then actually we can start to work with anybody. And that's what we need to be able to do more of in teams. For
sure. One more point before I pass it to Kerry. I'm smitten by your word choice of commit. When you're talking about when we go to move the table, the whole rest of the team has to commit to that choice. It's a perfect word, and it definitely explains something that seems to miss a lot in leadership. In leadership, we do a lot of barking, but we're not really clear that we got the commitment. Is there anything you teach about that?
Yeah, I think that is the role of leading from the front, is about being clear about this is the direction we're going, and ensuring that there is enough trust and respect that the team are committed to come with you. And so, you know, whether it's with my horses or with my human team or my clients, I'm always looking for, are they willing to come with me? And if they're not, what do I want to do about that? Do I want to change my behavior to get them to come with me, or do I want to go in the direction they're going? Or do we co-create something and go in a completely different direction? So again, it's coming back to that curiosity, but committing to creating action that leads change that makes a difference.
Jenna says, you're so right, Chris. Commitment is so important on a team. So I'm hearing like you can do a lot of things to get your team working like a well-oiled machine, but sometimes the whole world goes to hell around it. So that's what the new book is, right? Like leading when things are a mess. So how is that different? Like leading through uncertainty is different than leading when everything is status quo.
Well, I think the first thing is that when there's the status quo, we think we know what we're doing, and we like to think that there is certainty. And that we know we're going from A to B. And actually, I think if the pandemic has shown us anything, it's that everything is always uncertain, and we've always led through uncertainty. We've just probably not led through it under a magnifying glass in the same way before. And so there's this recognition now that actually everything is uncertain, you know, whether it's in the world, whether it's global events, economically, whether it's professionally. If you've ever sat on a highway or a motorway trying to get a flight to go on holiday, and sat in traffic and worried and got anxious about, am I going to make my flight? You know, that's the anxiety that uncertainty can bring. So it can be on a minor level that we create uncertainty. So what we need to be able to do, and the reason why I wrote the book Leading Through Uncertainty, is we need to recognize that our stress levels go up when things aren't absolutely nailed down, as they did for the guy that I talked about earlier. And that we need to then have the skills to be able to be more adaptable and more flexible and be willing to change, because uncertainty requires us to continually flex.
The new book is called Leading Through Uncertainty, and Jude has a whole bunch of other books as well. You can also swing by JudeJennison.com to get a whole lot of it. Jude, we're at the whole part of the show where it gets a little crazy, because first off, we have to crown a person of the day.
Oh, and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
I never know who it's going to be.
I was sorely tempted to crown one of the horses, but
they didn't make an appearance.
Guess I'll go with Janice, because she wanted to headbutt people at work. So, Janice, your person of the day. Welcome back to the fold. We've missed you ever so much. Thank you for coming back to the show. It's been strange without you.
You know who loves apples? Horses.
Horses love apples, Janice. You could bring your apple to the it's not a farm. What do you call it? You don't call it a farm.
That's such a good tip. The guy should have just put some sugar cubes or apple slices in his pocket. I'm like, come on.
Oh yeah, dude, you don't call it a farm. What do you call it?
I call it the stables, but I know that in the US you call it the barn.
Barn. Okay. the barn stables something. Okay, we have come to another part of the show that we ask every single guest we've ever had on here, everyone from Sister Anne Flanagan to Sir Mix-a-Lot to world beatbox champion Butterscotch. We've asked the question, what goes in your backpack? This could be something physical, like an apple. Could be something metaphorical, like world peace. Kerry, what's an example of something physical you could put in a backpack?
Extra set of teeth. DJ Cumberbund.
Yeah. How about something metaphorical?
Oh, kindness. Ariel Helvetica, burlesque performer, said kindness.
Kindness. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Jude Jennison, what should we add to the backpack?
I'm going to add a photo of a horse. Because the horse itself is probably a little bit too big for the backpack. But a photo of a horse is a really great reminder of just that physical, oof, as soon as I see a photo of a horse, it invokes that embodied state for me of being around them. That, you know, invokes the smell, the relaxation, the emotional intelligence, the integrity.
It's got to be a proper horse too.
We did have somebody put black women in the backpack because Nikki Porcher runs buy from a black woman. It's like a network, and she wanted to put her network in the backpack. So there's a lot of room.
There's room
in the
backpack. If you want to put the horse in there,
let's stick a herd of horses in there.
All right, it's a magic backpack.
My Aunt Jane used to and still stables horses. She was involved in dressage, which I consider the art of making horses look like they're trying not to step on a light bulb. So she had a whole farm full of these beasties and started studying them as well. She got a nice male horse to make babies. We'd go over there all the time, and my grandmother was notorious for somehow putting her fingers near horses. I don't know what it was.
Wait, what?
Inevitably had her finger near a horse's head or mouth, and the horse was very curious to know if that was an apple or not, and turned out it wasn't. So probably one of the most legendary moments that involved a beautiful Appaloosa named Anne, and she